Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video here on the RoleCall YouTube channel. So I have been playing D&D 5e for a while now, and I have noticed quite a few things that bother the heck out of me. I mean, no game system is without its imperfections. D&D 5e is a fantastic system, and I cannot recommend it enough. It is great for what it is. But I figured, since I am allowed to have opinions, that I would make this video talking about probably the 5 biggest things in D&D 5e that bother me. So, without further ado, after you like, comment, and subscribe, let's frickin' get into this! Number 1 on this list is something that everyone playing 5e has noticed at some point, whether they realized it or not. And that is the perception skill. Oh my stars! Is perception OP in 5e. There are so many things in 5e that require perception checks, and perception is everything. It's you listening, it's you tasting, it's you looking, it's you trying to read lips, it's you trying to smell a fire, it's just all of those things melded into one. And when you're dealing with a game that requires so heavily on exploration, having all of those things condensed into one skill is freaking broken. All of this became really apparent to me when I was playing Call of Cthulhu, and perception is basically broken down into like a million different skills. And I thought to myself, that's really cool. That makes sense. Because as it stands, perception is easily the most used skill in 5e. And it kind of clogs up the works a little bit for some of the other skills, like insight and survival, and I mean, those are the only 2 things I can really think of. But those 2 things, I mean, there could be more. There could be so much more. If I had control of this design, I would probably break perception down into listen, see, hear, and smell. And then maybe I would give the players like one more skill to be proficient in just across the board to counteract the addition of some additional skills. Here's a visual representation to give you an idea of how OP perception really is. Okay, so this is everything else. You know, it's cozy, it fits, it clearly serves a purpose, and it doesn't step on the toes of anything else around it. And meanwhile, this is the other thing. It is just chomping down on all of the other things beneath it. I mean, why would you ever choose these other things when you have this bigger thing that's just like all of those other things but way better? It's a problem. In short, perception OP, dog. Okay, now on to the second thing that I would change, and that is AC. AC is dumb, and I will fight anyone who thinks differently. The entire concept of you're in combat and this one thing determines whether or not you take any damage at all is so frustratingly uninteractive, and I hate it. Save or suck mechanics suck, and I want them out of my games. If I were to fix AC, I would break it down into 4 parts. I would break it down into the weapon that you're using, the armor that you're using, your capability to dodge, and of course, luck. And using those 4 things as bedrock to build on, I would want the entire AC system to be reworked to something that's a lot more interactive and less, okay, you either take all the damage or you take none of it. Because interaction, man. Interaction. The third thing I would change in D&D is the frickin' monster action economy. And D&D 5e kind of addresses this with legendary actions, and I know that there's some popular homebrew with like villain actions and things like that, but it just, running a standard monster in D&D doesn't feel as mystical as it could be in a lot of cases. For instance, I was running a Hydra a couple of weeks ago, and without homebrewing something, which again is the solution to all of these problems, but we're talking about rules as written here and what we want changed, so that's what we're going to talk about. But when I was running the Hydra, this iconic creature that the players were all really excited about, and I was excited about too, I didn't really homebrew it all that much. Looking back, I definitely should have more just because of what it turned into, which is what most D&D combat encounters turn into when the monster is outnumbered. it turned into a slogfest. It turned into, we surround the thing and let's hit the thing. Over and over and over again, hit it very hard, and the action economy dictates that we are just going to win. Feels bad, man. It feels bad on both sides, because on one hand, you want your monsters to feel mystical, and you want your monsters to feel powerful enough to provide a challenge to the players, and also kind of give them that sense of awe, you know? Like, you're fighting a freaking Hydra. Like, let's see some give and take. Like, maybe every time that you attack with a weapon, there's a 10% chance that it will get to bite the hand that attacked it, or something like that. Like, maybe a little more, like, yeah, just more interaction. But of course, on the other hand, you want consistency in your games. You don't want exceptions. So that's what 5e went with. They decided that consistency was more important than interactivity in the case of monster design. And again, Legendary Actions addresses this issue, but it's still not quite enough for me. And it's a very easy thing to homebrew out, but I just wish there were more things like Legendary Actions in the monster manual. I just wish monsters could do more things per round. I think that that would be really cool and play into the idea that you are these other creatures and you are fighting monsters that don't play by your rules, which is why it's such a big deal when you frickin' slay a dragon, for instance. These things are no joke. They don't play by your rules. I don't know. It's just a preference, and I want to see more action economy on the monster side. Okay, the fourth thing that I would change in 5e is bonus actions. And I think that the 3-action system, 4 if you're including movement, in 5e is magnificent. I think it is so beautifully simple. And with the advantage and disadvantage system, magnificently simple and intuitive. But bonus actions, some classes just straight up don't get to use on the earlier levels. There are some spells that you can cast as bonus actions, but bonus actions just seem like something that could be improved on. There could be more concrete rules for what you could do as a bonus action, because as it stands, you know, in the heat of combat, oftentimes players will have their bonus action left over and they will ask to interact with the environment in some way as a bonus action. And I think that is really cool, and I want to play into that, and I want more concrete rules that are like, okay, you can pick something up and throw as a bonus action, and anyone can do that. I want more written mechanical benefits for bonus actions outside of just being able to cast a spell as a bonus action, or if you're a rogue. That's basically all I want, because rogues use bonus actions wonderfully, and I think that cunning actions are great, and they definitely give the rogue the flavor that they need in 5e, so I don't recommend giving cunning actions to everyone, because then that would make rogues feel a lot less special. But I do think that 5e is very lacking in rules for bonus actions, and maybe some ways to interact with the environment as bonus actions, and I think that that would just be really cool, and I miss it. And I have to homebrew it, and I want some written rules for it. Okay, and last, but certainly not least, is the Ranger class in its entirety. This is controversial, I know, but I think the Ranger doesn't fit in 5e. Whoa, okay. Put the pitchforks down and hear me out. I think the concept of the Ranger in 5e works wonderfully. I think the class that is written in the player's handbook is way too specific and doesn't have its own identity. Everything that the Ranger can do, another class can do better. You want tracking and movement? Probably better off playing a rogue with some kind of expertise. You want some kind of connection with nature? Druids are way better than that, easily. You want to play that sniper that plays off in the distance, or that swordsman that is kind of attuned to the environment around them? Fighters are way better at doing those things. Really, the only things that Rangers have are the unique spells that are on the Ranger's spell list. And even those you can get by finagling some of the game's features like feats and things like that. So Rangers don't even really have that. The classes around the Ranger just do what the Ranger does a lot better. And I think that that's a real shame, because again, Rangers as a concept really fit into D&D 5e well. They are iconic, they're great, but too often in games where I either played as a ranger or I played with a ranger, did I get a sense like they just weren't doing their job as good as someone else in the party, which is a really problematic thing to have. You want your class to feel special, you want it to feel unique, and you want it to fulfill a purpose. And the other classes around it just seem to fulfill that purpose. How I would solve this? Either remove some of the capabilities of the other classes, or just completely redesign the ranger. Give us a completely revised ranger in the next whatever the hell book comes out. I don't know what it'll be called, but start from the ground up. Really get into the nitty-gritty of what a ranger is. Is it that they can endure harsh elements and that they can stay focused for long amounts of time? Maybe interact with exhaustion a bit more. They did that in Tosh's, and I think that that is a great place to start. That idea of a ranger being able to stay vigilant for days on end without really needing to worry about exhaustion. Great place to start. I want rangers to have a hunter's mark that is not a spell, that they can just do. Similar to Druid Wild Shape, I think Rangers need something like Wild Shape, or a class resource like Wild Shape, that they can expend and use and get back on short rests that makes them feel like Rangers. I honestly, and this is just a personal thing, I would remove spells from Rangers entirely and make them an entirely martial class and just focus on the interaction of the world around them. Like maybe they can make traps, or maybe they can imbue poisons onto all of their weapons at the start of each day that changes the damage type of their weapon. Or maybe give them the ability to craft poisons that give debuffs to enemies or buffs to allies. Things like natural solves that they can grind up from the plants around them and give to allies to give them like 10 extra movement per round or something like that for a minute. Or maybe give them the ability to craft poisons to coat their arrows with that give enemies -10 movement until the end of the next turn, or something like that. Something that feels specifically Ranger that no other class can do. I think the Ranger needs an overhaul. And I love the Ranger, and that's why I feel so passionately about this. I want to see the Rangers have the spotlight more, and needs a rework, dog. Which is Wizards, you listening? WOC? Rework the Ranger. And there you have it. Those were the 5 things that I want to see changed in D&D 5e. If you liked what you saw, don't forget to do all of the things that all the content creators tell you to do. Just follow them blindly. Don't listen to your conscience. Just do what they say. Like, comment, and subscribe! Okay, so this is everything else. You know, it's cozy, it fits, it clearly serves a purpose, and it doesn't step on the toes of anything else around it. And meanwhile, this is the other thing. It is just chomping down on all of the other things beneath it. I mean, why would you ever choose these other things when you have this bigger thing that's just like all of those other things but way better? It's a problem.